I want to be real here. After watching this episode, I honestly did not feel a soul. I didn't feel anything after watching this. Like, I did go and read the manga for this part. I did, because I just wanted to see. And after reading the manga, and then seeing this episode, it seems like my fears are very true. What I said last week is that the story is still here. Like, when it comes to One Punch Man's anime, the story is definitely still here. It's still just as good. But it's not displayed right. And like I said last week, it seemed like they were wanting to go from one scene to the next. That is definitely true with this episode as well. This episode, the reason what I mean by saying I didn't feel anything is that I got no sense of urgency. There's a lot of monsters just popping up here and there throughout every single city. And it's mentioned quite a few times in this episode. And we get to see the threat of, these monsters just popping up. But even then, though, it doesn't feel like a colossal scale. It doesn't feel like something truly frightening or terrifying. Because there's just not that right impact. It's just behind the scene, when you really look at it, doesn't give that emotional weight that, let's say, like I said in last week's episode, Boros did. When Boros popped up, you're like, this man is scary. Covering a city with his giant, ship, it's scary. So when you see this episode, it's very reminiscent of that. Like what I said, like last week, is that it lacks those emotions. It lacks that urgency that things are going down and heroes and humanity is being pushed up against the wall and people are probably going to die. You just don't get that sense of, tension. Which is sad, really. Because after reading the manga for this part, I'm like, man, it's such a radical difference. Because this episode had so much going on. There was a whole lot of, stuff going on in this episode, to the reveal of Orochi, and, the Lord of the Monsters, to all the fights that Genos went into, to Genos getting destroyed, to what happened to Metal Knight, and then, also seeing the tournament fight. There was just a lot of things in this episode, and I think many will appreciate that. But at the same time, though, it still felt like a whole lot of nothing. Like, it just didn't feel like anything crazy. It didn't feel like there was a lot of emotion put into it, which is sad. It's honestly very sad. So, let me get right into it. So, one of my biggest complaints of this episode is that I really wish that, the fight scenes, when it comes to, Genos, it felt like there wasn't really anything going on. Yes, it was a fight with Genos going up against, the cockroach, but when the fight went down, though, it didn't feel like Genos was really struggling. It didn't feel like any of those moments he was really struggling. He just was fighting, and then eventually used a technique that would eventually take down Sonic, and then he got off screen, and you're just like, the way they went from scene to scene, it didn't give us time to really relish in what was going on. When it comes to, let's say, a series like Dragon Ball Z, okay? This is a good example. Dragon Ball Z, I know it has, the whole, community, they like to make jokes about, one fight can take, 10 episodes. You have it to where they're charging themselves up for, 3 episodes. People like to joke about this. And in some cases, Dragon Ball Z, even though that is joked about and it's kind of exaggerated, it does have long scenes of charging, powering up, and building up tension. And that's kind of what this is lacking compared to Season 1. So, if I'm not even looking at the, let's say, art and animation, I'm not even going to factor that in, okay? I'm not. What I'm looking at here is that it doesn't have the proper filler scenes to really build up any emotion in fights. It doesn't have, the standoff of, let's say, Genos looking at the cockroach, or any of these characters really standing off and looking at their opponent. It doesn't have stuff like that. It doesn't have this build-up of tension where who's going to win. It doesn't ever give you that emotion. It doesn't give you that emotion of urgency, like I've said already. And I think that's what was missing from this episode, is that there was not enough time given to each individual scene. Because sometimes adding in a little bit of filler and extending some of the scenes is better. Sometimes it's better to have less content within an episode than all of the content. And that's what I'm trying to say. They fit so much into this episode that there wasn't enough time to really care about one particular scene throughout it. And that same goes for what happened with the tournament, what Saitama is currently in. You can't really get a good grasp or care for any of the characters because of just how the scenes are, cutting next to next. Like, the whole scenes with the A-class heroes getting destroyed like they did in this episode, it is a great part of the episode, and it really shows that the Deep Sea King held a lot of weight in terms of their career as heroes, is that with his monstrous strength and what he did, he definitely left a lasting impact on someone like Genos, someone like, the two heroes that were, annihilated in this episode, Max and Snake. And so when you see that, it's just like, I love that. I love seeing the development of these characters and how much they have changed since then. But because of the way the episode depicts them, it doesn't give them enough time to really shine. It just throws them to the side and looks at them as if they're, B-class heroes. Like, not legit B-class, but just like B-rated characters that is just trash you don't need to even care about. And that's not really what the message of that scene was about. When you think about what that scene was trying to show, is that at the end of the day, is pro heroes really needed? That was the message that was trying to be conveyed there, is that at the end of the day, monsters will continue to pop up. They will. And obviously, regardless if they're being a job occupation for being a hero, heroes will still rise up. Like, let's look at Saitama. That was the whole point of what this episode was trying to show. Even though Saitama is obviously now trying to be a main hero, like be a pro hero, he was doing hero work without actually getting paid for it or even acknowledged. And that's technically what a hero is really about. And that's kind of what he was trying to say, is that, even if pro heroes weren't around, heroes would still rise up. There's many individuals a part of this world that are very strong that are not considered heroes. And they might be, let's say, C-class heroes, but they could be, above S-class heroes. That was the major point there, is that now there's a time now to where pro heroes might not be needed. There needs to be a shakeup in the system, and there needs to be a lot of working and looking into individuals that are just meant to be really good at their job, but they're not actually considered heroes. Like, what Saitama was, and what he was before he became a part of the system. So, I think they didn't really cut that point in properly. It was really rushed over so quickly that you couldn't really care too much about it if you're an anime only. And also the entire scene with just the differences between the tournament to what was going on outside of it, it didn't really show the differences there as well. Because when you looked at, like, in the manga, when you were seeing, let's say, Genos fighting and stuff, and when you saw the stuff going on in the tournament, it showed how each side, one mattered and one really didn't. When you see these martial artists going in and fighting and all that, proving themselves, it showed that they may be skilled and strong, but they're not utilizing their power for what should be used for right now, protecting the citizens. While you see these heroes going out and fighting for people, trying to protect them, and they're falling left and right. And it was showing what was more important. And that's kind of what the tournament was trying to show in that moment, but this episode did not do a good job of really showcasing that. What mattered at the end of the day, and that the tournament is just, it's not really that important. So, I think, I just think in terms of what JC staff is doing, I see what they're trying to do. They are adapting the manga, but like I said, they're just pushing so much together that you can't really appreciate everything going on, because there's just so much in one episode, which is sad. It really is. So, anything else left to really talk about? I guess let's talk about, Fubuki. Fubuki Blizzard, she is someone that is of great importance in this episode. She is someone that gets her own fight scene, and I remember reading this in the manga and thinking, man, this is fantastic. Like, this is a really good fight, showing that even though she has a bunch of her groupies around her to protect her, she can somewhat hold her own and demonstrate her strength. It also showed that she did not want to hurt her underlings, and she was using her own power in a way to where she didn't have to hurt them. It's very Mob-like. If you know about Mob Psycho 100, then you know Mob was someone that didn't want to hurt people. And that's kind of what Fubuki was. She didn't want to hurt her underlings, didn't want to cause harm to them, because they were just being brainwashed. And she was trying her hardest to be able to fight her opponent without harming them. And so, when you see that scene to where her sister comes in and saves the day, it kind of harms Fubuki's feelings, because She obviously has, she feels inferior. She feels like she's very inferior to her sister. But at the end of the day, she probably is very strong. She just hasn't had the proper time to really grow. Because of her complex of feeling like she's inferior, she is limiting herself. She could probably be a very strong hero, but she just needs to have confidence. She needs to have self-confidence, but she lacks it. And once again, that was a very important part of this episode that I think wasn't properly demonstrated. But okay, I think I want to leave it at that. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.